Hey, Discernment listeners, Love is Blind. Let's check it out.
Yeah, I got a dirty martini drunk the other night, and
That's okay.
we had an argument, and I kind of just played it into him, and it wasn't fair to him how I delivered it. That's not
so
my character.
You were in the wrong.
I was in the wrong. Well.
Right. I was like, did she just admit that she was in the wrong? I mean, she was kind of implying that, and then he highlighted it, and then, yeah. I won't go over it again. So for me, when I am in this situation, like in my personal life, like one time I had a student. I've had thousands of students come my way, but I had one, so I'm not outing anybody. But I had a student once that I suspect might have been on the borderline spectrum. I don't know. I didn't have that much contact with her, but there was enough evidence for me to wonder, not that I diagnose students, but I can't help but to just see things in the world. And so I won't go into details, but she accused me of something that was so ridiculous. It wasn't anything like sexual or anything. It was just that I had promised something and that I had failed to deliver on that promise, something like that. And I knew that I did nothing wrong. I don't remember all the details, but I just remember knowing that, there are times as a professor that I'll make a mistake and someone will accuse me of something. And even if I'm defensive, there's a part of me that's like, yeah, I guess I did kind of do that. I mean, hopefully I just admit to it and say, I'm sorry. But in this instance, I knew I had done nothing wrong. If anything, I was being overly nice to the person. I was being overly favoring of the student and giving her special treatment. And then she became triggered and started to become extremely hostile. I mean, my adrenaline, my hands were shaking. And a lifeline that I could grab onto in that moment was, I did nothing wrong. What if if I had done something wrong and then it was exaggerated, then I might wonder, well, maybe I'm downplaying what I did wrong, right? But if I did nothing wrong and I'm being treated in such a hostile manner and there's no misunderstanding, it's just a complete invention or overreaction or something, it's a lifeline to me because I know I don't have to take it personally. And I know I don't have to question it much because it's so overblown and just made up, right? If someone in public just comes up to me, just some stranger, and says, I hate your guts, I think you're a horrible person, everything about you is the worst, it's not going to hurt my feelings because they don't know who I am. They're not basing it on anything, right? Whereas if my wife told me that, then that would hurt, right? So it's different. So when she just completely goes after Jimmy for going to a birthday party for 1 hour, that was the whole thing. And she was certain that Jess was there, even though she wasn't. She was certain that some woman was there, even though it was just the two girlfriends of one of his 8 fraternity brothers. She accused him of all of those, all these things. And, when I'm in Jimmy's shoes, I've been there before. It is a lifeline because you're just like, I don't need to even entertain any of this because there's nothing here. You've demonstrated that your reactivity is so disconnected from reality that I don't really have to wrestle with this. I don't have to struggle with it. It's just like someone on the street, a stranger screaming at me. I can be calm in my response to this. You know what I mean? Anyway, so she's doing it again. Well, I did nothing wrong. It was all his fault.
Fair to him how I delivered it. That's not
so
my character.
You were in the wrong.
I was in the wrong. Debatable.
It wouldn't be an argument if you thought you were 100% in the wrong.
Yeah,
you just admit I'm wrong.
I just delivered it horribly.
Yeah, it's not a good sign because like with Jeremy, I would hope that with time, some reflection, some humility, some growth or something would set in. You know, like with Jessica, when she was broken up with, she was pretty angry and said, when you see me, you're going to need an EpiPen. The next time she talks to him, she is like, I was gassing my, you know, that's change. That's recovery. That's reflection. It's humility. There's a bit of an apology in there. And Jeremy, we saw none of that. With time, it almost got worse to some extent, or at least just stayed. But similarly, you would just hope that with time, she would eventually say, well, yeah, I mean, when I really thought about it, there was some things that I was completely unfair about. She's saying the same thing, my delivery. She stands by everything that she said, every point that she made. There was, in terms of my evaluation of the edit, which I have no idea, there wasn't a single point that she made that had any merit at all. At least it wasn't presented to us, so I can't know. I'm just saying this so that you can know if you saw something like that, what happened in real life, know that at least my take would be you're not being accused of anything real. So her take is still, my delivery was bad. Yeah, upsetting.
I got everything I needed from you every single day.
Oh, I know. I wish we could play out both scenarios because, like, I want to, like, know my brain with either outcome of, like,
Yeah.
because you're attractive.
At the very least, he's talking like someone that's consistent with his presentation, having at least fallen in like with her. And, you know, the words he's using, the things he's entertaining, it is in line with at least what a lot of people would feel in his shoes. So there's that. Jeremy, on the other hand, resembles nobody that no one I don't know clinically anyway, you know? So maybe Trevor did legit fall in love, or at least in like, you know, maybe there's an in-between version between the allegations from the woman in his life that he was on the fence about the woman outside of the pods, and when he met Chelsea, he was like, oh, you know, but he wasn't like, absolutely, let's get married, because he's thinking, I'm still playing the field and I'm just using this show as another version of that. But he might have legit had affection and is genuinely curious and wondering, is this the one? Maybe we wouldn't know. You know, he's saying that sounds like that, but you know, it could be an act. I don't know.
Or met them.
Yeah.
Would you still think
Yeah.
you're attractive?
Yeah.
I think either way, I think you're attractive.
Thank you.
But like, it would be.
And I will say that people with borderline personality disorder, it's hard to measure infidelity prevalence and rates among different populations because you have to ask people, have you cheated? And a lot of times people are in a relationship right now, and even if it's anonymous, you always just like, you never know. Plus, you might not even just want to admit it to yourself. Plus, what do we constitute as cheating? Is it flirting? Is it kissing? Is it sexing? What is it? And it's hard to know, but we could imagine someone with borderline or even just preoccupied attachment, when they're heavily triggered, can, you know, really be upset and needy and want a connect, particularly if Jimmy were to distance himself for a while, that because of the other focus and the lack of self, at the lack of connection with self. I don't like the phrase lack of self because they do have a self, they just don't have a connection with it. Lack of self, the phrase actually can harm people who have a lack of connection with self because that's what they think. They think they don't have a self, but of course they have a self. They just weren't allowed to develop that neuronal connection that can be developed later in life. But it can be hard because, and you believe that you're a terrible human being that no one will love, and then someone comes along like an ex or something, and it could be very tempting, right? I can't remember the research on that, but there are different styles of, I did a whole deep dive on infidelity and attachment styles and personality disorders. And from my memory, the research is kind of spotty. There's not a ton of research. Plus, like, how do you identify people with borderline personality disorder? Typically it's on a survey, and they would have to know. maybe they got diagnosed, but the vast majority of people with personality disorder, in my estimation, never get a formal diagnosis. They don't even know the label anyway. And if they were diagnosed, they deny it, but blah, blah, blah. I do want to say another thing earlier, that they were talking with Mackenzie and Laura, and they were talking about Jeremy. I think that was what it was. And, they were saying, Jeremy, he's a cheating bastard. I'll stand by that that assumption. It's hard to know, but it wouldn't be hard to imagine, particularly given the way that he was treating Laura. But Mackenzie said something, I think it was Mackenzie, that she said, well, he's a man, so of course he's going to cheat. Okay. I'm going to pipe up, or I'm going to speak up when those kinds of generalizations are made. And we actually have research on this. Again, it's hard to research this, hard to get people to necessarily be honest, but you'd be surprised that a lot of people can be very honest on these sorts of surveys. But anyway, it's a myth, particularly the younger you get, with humans regarding infidelity in the United States. I can't speak to other countries because infidelity seems to be partially a product of power and privilege, because older people, there is a wide gap between men and women, people identify as men and women, regarding infidelity, with a lot more men having cheated than women. But when you get to younger people, like in their 20s today, if anything, there's a slight higher rate of infidelity among women than men. But the error bars are such that it's probably the same, meaning that for younger people, no difference among gender. There seems to be a lot of evidence around that. And the trend has been going that way for decades. I've been following, it's sort of an area of specialty of mine. So, I've been following that research, and it slots in with my understanding or my take about society and about infidelity. Because this notion that somehow men are dogs, they're constantly obsessed with sex. Well, my anecdotal experience was women can be just as much dogs, if you will, just as much, just as horny and just as interested and obsessed with sex as men. But because of society, shaming that, a lot of women will either hide it or submerge it. And the opposite is true for men, that you'll have men that, think about sex like anyone would, but in order to be masculine, they have to act like they're constantly thinking about sex in certain circles. So that can affect things, those kinds of internal oppressions or exaggerations can affect behavior, and it might have. But the other factor is that in the past, a lot of women didn't leave the house, so they didn't meet people. They had to take care of five. Back in the day, their average household, there's a number of kids in the house, and the woman wouldn't have access. Plus, her economic situation was such that, and this isn't for all women, but for more women than men in the past, the economic situation was such that if she jeopardized her marriage, she'd be completely destitute. She didn't have any skills or any career. She was completely oppressed and prevented from getting an education, from gaining skills. And typically, she'd be left with the kids and destitute. So there's a huge incentive not to cheat. There's another incentive that men wouldn't necessarily have, right? And men are more likely working outside the home. They're able to stay out after work and meet people and cheat, okay? That's been changing because we've been fighting hard. Feminists like myself have been advocating and marching and voting and talking and writing and teaching and therapizing so that the overall sexism and misogyny can come to an end. We're far from that, but we've been working on it, and it's been working. And what you have now is you have a lot more women with power and a mindset and an economic situation that is getting closer to men, and therefore they are cheating at a similar rate as men. So this idea, especially in their age group, research shows, this idea that, well, he's a man, of course he's cheating, is unscientific. Just saying.
Jimmy, I'm thinking of your fiance.
Hi.
Okay?
Are you okay?
I'm great.
I feel uncomfortable, Jimmy. I would like a kiss on the cheek.
You want one?
Yeah. Come on.
That's great. I wish that Jess had, but I don't know. I don't know if it's just the music they play, but the vibe between Jess and Jimmy is just so much different. Like as I'm watching Trevor and Chelsea, I don't feel any of that tension. But with Jimmy and with Jess, I don't know if it's just me watching Netflix, but there's definitely a different feeling. Even though on paper it's the same. They both said the other person was their number one until the very last moment, which I believe. So what is that?
My angel came to save
I
me.
want a fucking hug, dude.
I do love you.
I love you, bro.
Oh, it's the romance for me.
Yep.
I know, Trevor, every single time I look over my shoulder, you're being
Kissing
affectionate.
a guy or something? Yeah, and I'm talking to his wife.
And I will throw out there, it's possible that Chelsea and Jess hugged and kissed on the cheek just like Jimmy and Trevor did. And they just left it out because they want us to feel the tension. You know, we'll hold out for that possibility. It certainly doesn't look that way, but you know, you never know.
Oh, baby, do you want to say it?
Don't. No, you can't say they're the strongest
Baby,
couple.
they
Don't. No, you can't say it.
Okay. What do I
I
say?
think that makes me.
Maybe.
So I don't know if he's joking. This is sort of a new look from him, but you know, it makes sense that Chelsea is like, oh my God, you guys are the strongest couple. And for Jimmy, that could feel hurtful. Yeah. Trying to think how I would feel in that situation. Yeah, I don't know if I'd say anything, but I think, well, it's hard to look at how great Johnny and Amy are together and not at least say like, wow, you guys, you know, and there's no fighting. Oh, wow, must be nice. But anyway, so let's see what happens here.
You're getting a little red, just a little.
It's okay. It could be worse.
It's okay. I love you.
I love you too.
No, it's not.
You
You don't think we were?
I mean, I think we're right behind him. I think we're with him.
Yeah, I think objectively, most people inside or outside of the show would say that. I mean, hard to know what's strongest couple, but under most metrics, I guess strongest meaning like most likely to succeed, most likely to be happy, most happiest, closest. Yeah, I think that's rational. But at the same time, he just said it hurt his feelings. So just change the subject or say, oh, you're right. I mean, what's the point in drilling down on it? Plus, you'd think she would like him saying that. He might even be saying that to prove to her. So I don't know. He also could be legitimately hurt.
By default, we're behind them.
Yeah, we're not saying for me to think, right? No, babe, don't do that.
And she's staying with it. Like, it's probably fine, but like, why do you need it to be out there? Like, it'd be so easy for her to say, yeah, you're right. I'm just talking. We're strong, honey. I love you. Thanks for saying that. We're strong. You know, it's not hard to say, but you know, because it's not like there's something at stake. Like they have to vote and an award goes out or something. Even if you thought this to be true, like I said, it wouldn't be irrational, but it wouldn't be hard, especially if he says it hurts my feelings.
Don't be mad.
I don't know.
I'm mad. I'm just messing with you, I promise.
I was just being goofy.
Okay, so he says, I'm just messing with you. It didn't seem like that, but maybe it's not a huge deal for him.
Little insult.
Yeah.
I know. If you're joking, then that's fine.
Of course I was kidding. I would never say that out loud.
Okay, so he says, I'm a little insulted. Okay, yeah. Rather than getting hostile for no reason, at least there's, and it's not hostile, it's just leading with his feelings. Or maybe, you know, like with her, and maybe he'll escalate, God knows, but the birthday party thing, if she had said, hey, you know, when you left last night, it hurt my feelings, and that's all that she said, and she said it in this demeanor, it would be completely different. It's not the complaint. It's the whole holistic picture.
I'm being serious. Babe, especially to who I said it to. I would never say it out loud.
I believe you. It's also in my best interest to give you a little shit for it.
How was it? With Jess.
It was good.
Good.
Okay, pretty awkward, we'll say. But all's well that ends well. I also wonder if he's doing what I might have talked about earlier, that when people in this dynamic finally, you know, the person in Jimmy's shoes finally experience something that resembles what he's been accused of so many times, that even though you're not particularly hurt by it and you wouldn't say it normally, you feel like you want to say it so you can show the other person that, look, the things you accuse me of, you do to me too. That, you know, like, so, and watch how I deal with it in a much nicer way, that kind of thing. So, I don't know. He could have also just been insulted, which is, and they don't really have a language of him being able to complain. Or maybe he has a lot of sensitivities that have yet to show because hers have been eclipsing it. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, remember to take care of yourself, take care of others, because we all deserve it. We really, really do.